To everybody, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you're listening to us, whether it's on the radio, whether it's on television, podcasting sites, YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. And definitely share this with your friends and your family. We greatly appreciate it. Today, we do have Rob Cornilles on. He is a man that we're going to have on definitely again. He did write the book rather, The Sales Game Changer, How to Become the Salesperson People Love. He also is the founder of GameFace Inc. You can go to gamefaceinc.com and find more about him. And he also has a podcast too, which we'll dabble into in just a second. So Rob, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Sorry. Rob, thanks so much for coming on the program. Definitely appreciate having you. And I'm all winded out from our conversation, and we just started.
Yeah, your audience doesn't know that we've been talking for probably 30 minutes before this interview started because we were having such a good time. And then I think you said, hey, maybe we should start recording.
Yeah, we can. But anyways, we'll start this conversation because I want to go a little bit deeper into yourself. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself than I did?
Yeah, you bet. So I founded a company, as you said, called GameFace Incorporated in 1995. And it was really the culmination of a realization I came to, which was in my early professional life, I was working at the LA Clippers basketball team. This is back in the early 90s. For your audience members who like sports, who follow sports, they may recall that the early 90s or the 90s version of the LA Clippers was a lousy team. Yes. And I was, and you're laughing at me, Rob, I haven't even told the story yet. And so I was hired to sell season tickets and anything else that people might, want to put some money on. Mm-hmm. And I was not having any success. Was not well trained, had never experienced a sales position before, and eventually I figured it out. And it was for me kind of a revelation on how I can sell what appeared to be an unsellable product, and it has nothing to do with deception or with fibbing or telling little white lies. It was something completely different, which was a mind blower for me and a game changer for my life. And so with that success that I was having, I eventually began consulting with other sports teams on how they could do the same. And that's what led to the formation of GameFace. So over the last 26 plus years, I've been working with not only 300 sports teams around the world, but also a lot of what I would call regular businesses, companies in, whether it be tech, media, manufacturing, professional services, financial services, consumer goods, et cetera. And we teach salespeople, in fact, anyone in the organization, how to be the salesperson people love, which is a lot of contrarian views of sales. And so we've been able to do a lot of work with tens of thousands of people around the world. And so it's been a great career. And by the way, I'm also married 35 years to the same woman, high school sweetheart, and have 3 awesome boys who have now grown and started their own families. And so I'm very blessed.
How do you get, someone to buy a product for a team or anything else for that matter that they know is probably not going to be successful?
Well, let's talk about sports specifically,
right,
since that's what you asked. I think we as a sports industry have made a huge mistake over the years, over the decades, in that we seem to singularly market our product as though the only thing that matters is team performance, wins and losses. But I would challenge any of your audience members right now who are listening or watching us, recall the last time you went to a sporting event. And if you had a good time, why did you have a good time? Now, if you're going to say because the team won or because they won the championship, you're probably in the minority. Most people will admit I had a good time because I was able to spend quality time with my kids or my partner or my grandparents or my colleagues from work. Or you're going to recollect, I had a really successful evening because I used it as a business tool, as a business meeting away from the office, where I was able to secure more business from an existing customer or client, or win a new customer or client because we spent that time together. Or I was able to recruit good talent to my organization because I hosted them at a game. Or if I'm a nonprofit organization like a church or a youth sports organization, that was a really an effective outing for us that night because we raised our profile, because we were able to broadcast to more people of our community the good that we perform. We were able to thank our volunteers. We were able to increase our membership because of the people, our guests who came that night, who later decided they wanted to participate full-time with us as a volunteer, as a member, as a donor, what have you. In other words, people go to sporting events year in and year out, decade after decade, generation after generation, not to watch a championship, but because they like the results or the outcomes that stem from that evening or that afternoon. So what I would say, what I learned, frankly, Rob, was I have to stop selling what was an objectionable product that anybody could tell me was lousy and too expensive and not worth the time, and they'd be right. Or I could sell something that everyone agrees with, and that is, do you like building memories with your family? Right. Do you like to win new customers? Do you like to retain the clients you've already earned? Do you like to motivate your staff and thank them for their hard work? When those kinds of questions are asked, the answers are so predictable. When they say yes, then I say, I know what I can do for you at a Clippers game.
What makes a good salesman?
I guess the answer I would give you, Rob, is I would ask your audience, think about all of the stereotypical qualities of a salesperson. And then the opposite of that is what makes good sales. So let me give you 2 examples that come to mind as you ask that question. You mentioned someone who's a good speaker. Yeah, it helps to be able to articulate yourself well, to explain things simply so anybody can understand it. That's all very helpful. And that can be trained if you don't know how to do it. But I would also add that great salesmanship is not necessarily great speaking, it's great listening. Because if you can listen to what the other person is really trying to convey to you, and remember, you can't listen unless they're talking. And sometimes salesmanship is about how to get the other person to talk. So it's through good questioning, right? We call it discovery, we call it analysis, needs analysis, whatever you want to call it. I have my own word for it. It's called assessing. Knowing how to assess the other party without sounding invasive, without prying, but sounding genuinely interested is a huge component of successful salesmanship. And the other one that comes to mind is, I think we'd all agree that if you're going to be a great salesperson, you got to be really enthusiastic, right? You got to be busted out of your shirt with enthusiasm and standing on your chair half the day. But what I learned, Rob, is that when I was selling a terrible product, at least what people thought was a terrible product, the more enthusiastic I was, the crazier they thought I must be, right? How can anyone be this giddy about a lousy basketball team? So I found that enthusiasm actually worked against me. So the contrarian point of view I took was, you know what? I'm not going to feign enthusiasm for a bad product. What I am going to do is I'm going to muster up energy for every interaction I have with a potential customer. The energy is not necessarily boisterousness. The energy is focus, it's emphasis, it's a tenacity to dig into what that person is really trying to accomplish in their life, their business, their social interactions, and then be able to then nail it with, and here's how I can assist you in achieving that using my product or service. I've got an unmistakable energy to get you that answer or that solution you're searching for.
Are you worried about millennials now, though, as far as salespeople in general? I know, and I haven't been in college in a little bit of time, but recently back, 2011, 2012, I would walk by a woman or a guy, and if they didn't know me, they would put their head down and they look at the phone and they'd keep on walking. And then once you got by that little pass, they'd look back up. And then when the next person came, same thing. And I would study these people sometime, and I would think about how cell phones, technology in general, has hurt the social interaction between people in general in this country, but even probably around the world for that matter. And I think that's going to hurt people that want to go into sales, because we're not going to have those people that can read other people because they're worried about looking at their phones. We're not going to have good social interactions because people don't know how to interact, because they're texting, they're not calling, they're not meeting people face to face. Are you worried about that with the younger generations?
Well, the short answer is I'm concerned,
Okay.
but I have hope. And here's why I have hope. First of all, because they have new technologies today that maybe you and I didn't have when we were younger, and I won't put you in my generation, Rob, I won't do that to you, but admittedly, when I was first starting to learn how to sell, the greatest technology we were utilizing at that time was a fax machine, right? So that was like God's gift to sales. We had fax machines. So they have tools right now that can enhance their salesmanship, can enhance their means of communication, the frequency of communication, the quality of communication. So for that reason, I'm very hopeful for them. And I envy them, frankly. Now, what the point you're making, however, is that if there's an overabundant reliance on those tools, then they're never going to learn the social interactions that you're talking about. So in actuality, you've just described why those generations must have sales training even more than their parents and grandparents did. Because through proper sales training, we will teach them how to do something that's maybe not natural for them. Maybe it's not instinctive for them. It's not instinctive to have eye contact. It's not instinctive when you have a question, rather than to use your thumbs, you actually use your finger to dial and to have a conversation. And so that's what my sales training does for that generation. In fact, I've recently announced a new sales masterclass called the Game Changers Masterclass. And it's not just designed only for the millennials and Gen X, but we're finding that they are huge users of the masterclass because they want that. They crave that kind of training. In almost every case, we're opening up a whole new vista for them on how they can enhance their interpersonal communications while also utilizing the advantages of technology today.
How does a person, we'll just say me, get past that kind of social anxiety with talking to someone and make because that's going to really hurt my sales pitch?
Well, my suggestion in that case is very simple. And that is the reason why social anxiety, and I'm not a doctor, and those who are listening who are, please forgive my armchair, prognosis here. But I'm going to suggest that the reason why we have social anxiety, especially in these one-on-one interactions or potential one-on-one interactions, is because we're thinking too much about ourselves. We're thinking too much about how we're being perceived by the other party and how they are judging us. So what I recommend to people that I train is develop the discipline. In fact, there's skills around this that I teach. Develop the discipline when you are approaching an individual or want to approach an individual, to turn the focus around entirely on them. And the way that you can do that is by learning good conversation starters, if you will, that directly and clearly tell the other person, I want to focus on you. And when you focus on them, then your self-doubt and your insecurities become, frankly, almost irrelevant, because it's not about you anymore. It's about them. And if you can learn the right ways of starting the conversation, the right ways of continuing the conversation through not only effective questions, but also meaningful responses, then you're going to gain confidence, because you're going to find that conversation is much easier to engage in. And before you know it, because you've shown such interest, genuine interest in the other party, they want to know about you in reciprocity. And that's fantastic. And then with that newfound confidence, you'll feel emboldened and empowered to share with them things about you that maybe you never thought 10 minutes ago you'd ever reveal. So that's the first thing. That mindset is, don't put the attention on yourself, put it squarely on the other person, the other group of people that you're talking to, and you'll be amazed how it opens up your confidence.
So first, let's go into the book. What made you want to write the book? I know you talked a little bit about, what you've done. You've done this for such a long period of time, and this next generation does need the training. Was it because of that? Is that why you developed the class and the book?
Yes, I don't want to sound noble, but I did want to make sure that, whenever they put me in the ground, there's something that outlives me. And that is the message that I've been sharing for nearly 30 years. And because I have found through, tens of thousands of examples, this content improves lives. It improves careers. It improves relationships. It improves incomes. It improves revenues. And then the second reason is that, quite frankly, for years, I have been goaded by friends and clients who I love. Rob, you got to put this into a book. And I always thought, Rob, that frankly, a lot of authors are just self-serving, self-promoting. And I just didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to be construed in that way. So I always just kind of put it off, but the encouragement got to be so intense. And frankly, COVID reduced the amount of travel I could do in the year 2020 and most of 2021. And so that gave me a chance to stay home and focus on just bringing all of these years of experiences and content into a single document called The Sales Game Changer. And I was so thrilled when in the first day it was on sale, it became a bestseller.
Right. Well, it's true. People need to know that, especially the people in my generation and younger, because like you said, it's going to help them become more successful in life in general, whether it's just family stuff, whether it's business stuff, it's all runs together because, the more you can sell yourself, the better off you will be. I agree with that 100%. I want to talk about this because this is an audience question we got, and then we'll get ready to end the interview because I know we're running out of time. But last two audience questions was, the first one is, what was your hottest sale? Sorry.
My hardest sale was the first one I ever made at the Clippers because it took over 90 days to get.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, my first 90 days, Rob, I in sales, we call it a goose egg. I had Zippo sales and I was literally hours away from quitting. And what happened was someone called me back. I didn't even know my phone had a ringer on it, frankly, because I was always making outbound calls. No one ever was calling me. But the guy called me back in a really gruff voice, and he basically said, "Hey, I thought about what you said, and I want to come down to the arena right now. Do you take Amex? I want to pick out my seats and just get it done." And what I learned from that, and I hope all of your listeners can learn from this, in whatever aspect of their life it could be helpful, whether they're trying to get that job, whether they're trying to get that sale, whether they're trying to get that date, what they can learn is this: no is not forever. No is for now. So when people say no to us, or when they say, I don't know, which is sometimes even worse, just realize that that is a temporary response because timing is not right currently. But eventually everything changes in people's lives, right? Circumstances will change, priorities, goals, ambitions, income, budgets, everything changes eventually. And if you're the salesperson that's done it the right way, eventually I believe that that no is going to come back to you as a yes if you're the person that they love to do business with.
I have another audience question before we end the interview, and this one is about resumes. What do you hope that young people do on their resumes as far as perfecting it to make sure that they can get that next job, the promotion, or maybe another job?
It's a great question. I appreciate your audience member who's bringing this up. I think we'd all agree that when we craft a resume, it's our chance to come as close as possible to perfection, right? And we want to convey, look how perfect I am as a candidate. And I'm going to give, once again, kind of a contrarian piece of advice. make your resume, or rather answer this question throughout your resume. How will this organization that you're applying for, how will they be better 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 24 months from now, because they hired you? What difference will you make to them? Oftentimes what we talk about is our qualifications, our skills, our competencies. It's all about us. And I understand that. But if you want to stand out, if you want your resume to stand out from all the others that are on that stack, what I would recommend you do is you focus on the results that that interviewer, that hiring manager, that company is looking for, and then address how you can be a contributor to help them achieve those results. So one of the best questions I could ever recommend in an interview, if you're interviewing me, Rob, for a job, and you come to that point in the interview where you say, so Rob, do you have any questions of me that I can answer? That's the question I would ask you. Yes, Rob, I have a question for you. 30 days from now, if you hired me, how will you know you made the right hire? And then you'll tell me, well, if I made the right hire with you, Rob, I will see our revenues have gone up by X%. I will see a better teamwork among my team because you're going to contribute to that. I will see, X, Y, and Z. And then when you give me that answer, that's what I'm going to reiterate to you. I'm going to bring to the table. That's what I'm going to bring to this organization. So it's not about what I want. It's about what you, the interviewer, want or need from this new hire. Tell me what it is, and I'm going to explain to you how I'm the person that's going to get you there. And even before I know that, do your homework, find out what results would be valuable to that organization or that team, and put that as your objective on the top of your resume, because that's a game changer.
I think the problem is a lot of people at the end of that interview, when they ask that question, because they usually always ask that, a lot of people just say no, and they don't ask that question back. I've been the person that have said no in the past, and then I had somebody that told me, said, hey, ask any question back is better than just saying no. You know what I mean?
It doesn't show much interest either in the person who's interviewing you or the organization you want to work for if you say no. And by the way, I thought you were going to say the answer most people give is, well, when do health benefits start?
That's
right?
True. People do that.
It's a very self-serving question. So discipline yourself, script it out in advance so that when the question comes, you know exactly what you're going to say, but ask a question about them and how you can drive the results or outcomes that are valuable to them. And that's going to make you stand apart.
Where can people get the book, find more about you, Rob, in general?
Well, like you said at the beginning of our interview, gamefaceinc.com is our website. They can learn a lot about me and about our company and the services we provide to a whole host of industries. If any of your listeners or viewers would like to get some free sales tips from me on video, all they have to do is go to gamefacesales.com, gamefacesales.com. Just give us your email address, and we'll begin to send you daily for the next 3 weeks what I like to call a daily sales cup of coffee. It's just about a 1 to 3 minute video on a tip related to sales, related to relationship building, related to communication that I hope your audience will find very helpful. And it's my gift to you, Rob, and your audience for letting me appear with you today.
All right, Rob Cornelius, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.